Okay. Well, hi everyone. Welcome. We wanted to present this because I saw a need, and I feel like we all can benefit from each other's collective wisdom. And I wanted to prepare this strategic preparation for your firm, getting ready for 2025 and the new administration. Not everyone necessarily has to be an immigration attorney, but there's a lot of us on this that are. And so it has a special added meaning to it, getting ready for a lot of changes within immigration. But I'll tell you, in preparation for this, I used three different presentations, and it was sort of a throwback to a lot of the work in this space. One of them was a great presentation in Boston with the ALA Northeast chapter only about a week and a half ago, sustaining a successful practice in times of a large scale change, which we were preparing that before we even had the election results. And I think it was really well aptly timed, and a lot of really good thoughts and best practices came about from that the article, as well as the panel with my panelists. The other one was one that I had done in the years past with reviewing the year and preparing for the future. And then the other one was during the pandemic, well, about how to sort of approach change when there's uncertainty. And so between the three of them, I wanted to put a lot of some really good ideas together. I'm not saying I have everything, I have all the solutions, but I think we're all sort of looking for guidance at this time. And I wanted to help provide that, or at least a starting off point of some of these best practices. So thanks all for joining. And if at any point you want to, we can have a dialogue, chat, unmute yourself to speak, please go ahead and do so. So I am recording this for some people who couldn't attend at this time, but I think we get more value from the ability to communicate with each other. So just really quickly, I'm Ruby Powers with Powers Law Group is my immigration law firm, and also Power Strategy Group is the law practice management, small business consulting. And I wrote a book called Build and Manage Your Successful Immigration Law Practice with ALA, and also just recently published a book that's available on Amazon, Power Up Your Practice and Create the Law Firm and the Life You Deserve. And there's a lot of, this one just came out like a month and a half ago, a lot of great content in there. It was even refreshing my memory preparing for this, especially dealing with change, staff, time management, business practices, things like that. So let's go ahead and dive in. And I think we all need to sort of let ourselves get to, hopefully you've had a little lunch, or you've had some sustenance, some water, you moved around a little bit, and your brain's functioning at full capacity. Because I think what we need to do is be able to go into like a high level, the 30,000-foot view of what the world looks like, and reflecting on 2024 and where we're going in this coming year and this coming administration. And so I wanted to have this sort of scene, take yourself to wherever you feel. A lot of people go to nature, where you feel sort of at peace and sort of think, I'm going to give myself this next hour to just sort of reflect on what I need to do for my business, working on the business, not in the business, and try to stay focused on this so that you can have those high level connections and thoughts. And also I'd say it'd be good to just have either you're typing up or a chat, you have a notepad or something of like to do of what your takeaways from, because there's going to be a lot of like issue spotting of thoughts of homework for the future. That's why we added the workshop connection to the, and not just a webinar, but just to also have not be just talked to necessarily, but to have some takeaway so that you can move forward with some action items. So Mark Twain, fellow Missourian, secret of getting ahead is getting started. The secret of getting started is breaking down your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks and starting on the first one. I mean, it's sort of like that other expression, like, how do you eat an elephant? Which I don't know why I'd ever want to eat an elephant, but is you one bite at a time. And so we've got a lot ahead of us. And you know, we a lot of us have been practicing for quite a while. This isn't our first rodeo, as they say here in Texas. But you know, we've got this, and we just need to lean into our collective knowledge and our own strength that we have, and not let fear overcome. So let's go ahead on our journey. We're up here on this high level and we're thinking through. So I wanted to, there's so much I wanted to try to cover, but really we're trying to assess. So it's assessing our situation, our firm, where are we here in towards the end of 2024? And then what are some best practices to remain resilient, and systems and leadership, as well as what can we do going forward. So a tall order for less than 1 hour, but we'll see what we can do. And for the most part, we're talking about things. And I think what I'm going to do in the future is have more sessions on these topics and go more of a deeper dive. But let's go ahead and get started. Um, Good old ChatGPT and assess and strategize for uncertainty. This is something that really came to mind during the pandemic. I remember giving some speeches in 2020 after March, and we had to really think about what can we control and what can we not control. Okay, so we can control how we think, what we read, what we say, what we eat, how we take care of ourselves. We can't control the election and results right now. We can't necessarily control everything that's going to go on in our field of practice. We can control what we say to the media. We can control what we do tell our clients. So I think I just wanted to go through this little visual to just let us know what we can control, what we can't control, and sort of just think back, where we should spend our energy. Because I think a lot of times we talk about time, but we don't talk about energy. But energy is all around us, and that's we can be depleted of our energy with a smaller amount of time because of what if it drains us or not. And I think a lot of us on the immigration front for the last week and a half have been inundated with calls and inquiries from former prospective clients, existing clients, and just a lot of what do we do with our team. We're all leaders in our own firms, in our own space, in the community as well. So if anyone wants to chime in the chat or unmute yourself, feel free. But I think this is a really good reminder of what we can control and what we can't control. And there's this other concept as well about the circles of concern and influence. And this is also something to consider, like what you can influence and what you can't influence. We're all, it can influence our community and our firms. We all represent many clients, and they're looking to us as leaders to tell them, you know, should I be concerned or not, or how should I approach this? And the more that we can stay proactive, like being on this call and thinking of best practices on how we can represent our clients and be there for our staff, our clients, our community, and getting information out, and staying in that positive space, then the more I think we can sort of collectively increase the all energy and try to stay positive. The other way is if we're just a reactive, then I think we could go through a downward spiral and not be able to accomplish what we could if we were to stay positive and to think about what we really can influence. And this is very similar to the prior slide about what we can control and what we can't control. So I think we should all consider that. And I don't know about you, but when I came to work on November 6th, it was tough, but I felt like my firm was looking to me as to what was my take on it. My staff was looking to me. My clients were looking to me, and also being out there on social media, I think the community was looking to me as to my take on it. And it's tough being in this space where there's a lot of change, and we have to rise as leaders. But I think that we need to find these best practices and approaches on how we can weather this. And we've done this before. We've gone through pandemics. I mean, here in Houston, we've gone through hurricane after hurricane. We've gone through Trump 1.0, and we're going to go through Trump 2.0. And so I think that, and we've all had our own struggles and challenges. And so I think we just need to stay positive and put our mind where it needs to go. Um, I always, I always thought this was a funny quote, but I feel like sometimes it's good to remember. Um, I was living in DC around the time I think this one came out, but it's like, let's just think about what we know and what we don't know. And I think this is healthy for us to acknowledge. I think we have to stay confident in what we know, but we also have to have the healthy dose of we don't know everything. And this one seemed a little confusing at times. I got a little chart for it, but there's the known knowns, and these are the things we know that we have know. And there are the known unknowns, and that is to say, they are the things that we know we don't know. But there's also the unknown unknowns. There are things we don't know. I think what we are now having a lot of brainstorming as to what we think is going to happen. And then there's also what we have no clue about what could potentially happen. But then I also think to myself, you can only do so much. And sometimes the damage is in the fear or the anticipation of some of the things that might be said that will be done, but won't ever get to because it's not as much of a priority, and or it's not as feasible, and or there'll be a lot of litigation. For example, mass deportation for immigration. There's a lot to talk about it, but how feasible is it? Would people be detained? There's not enough detention facilities, but even if you weren't detained, we've even seen the last year or two where OPA and courts couldn't even keep up with all the NTAs that needed to be filed. So like, even if you were to try to potentially deport 13 million or however many they're trying to say, it really is not very feasible. There'll have to be a prioritization. And then those are the ones that we could focus on trying to help. So that's just an example. I think this gives us a little bit of peace, hopefully. There's what we know, what we don't know. Let's don't assume that we know everything. And I think assume is a word I don't like even using in my firm, because I feel like only bad can come from using the word assume. So we'll just, but we need to have a healthy dose of constantly learning, like Kaizen, the Japanese concept of constant improvement. So, okay, so there's some background here, and we'll get to some more action items. And then this is something I came across with some of my reading and research and writing. I don't know if you've heard something along this line. It's like, where you put your attention, your energy follows, and that intention goes where the energy flows. But basically, where you let consume your mind is where your energy goes. And so then that's what gets focused on. And so if you put it a lot on worry or negativity, then that's where you're empowering that with that energy. But if you stay positive or visualize what could be, and think about sort of well, wherever you put your energy to and your focus, that's basically where you're putting a lot of your intention. And I think this also goes to the concept of like manifesting. This does go to that concept of what, a lot of times I think we get into this reactionary mode, like, well, I don't want that to happen, I don't want that to happen, I don't want that to happen, but we don't really focus on what we do want to happen. And so when we focus on visualizing what we do want to happen, that often has more possibility of success than the reactionary mode. So I just wanted to start these first few slides with more of a mental approach before on sort of how to see things. And then I love this one, of course. This is the Eisenhower time. I also think it can be reflect to energy matrix about we want to stay out of everything but quadrant two. Quadrant two is where we really want to stay in. And urgent, this is urgent, important. Like that's really where we probably are feeling like right now, because the calls are coming in, people are freaking out, and it's like, okay, who do I triage? Who do I get out in the next 60 days? Even if those 60 days, does that matter? What can truly get done in 60 days, adjudicated and decided? But what we have been working on, as in quadrant two, is the not urgent important, like preparing, planning, um, closing cases, having good templates, having cross training our team, trying to do all those things that you should do even when it's like staying healthy and working out when so that you don't get like unhealthy one day and have to go to the hospital because you didn't take care of yourself. It's the preventative space. And then the not urgent, I mean, the not important urgent is where things distract you. Like it's as if you're like watching your email all day and let those other people's prioritization affect you, and you go in reactionary mode as opposed to working on your big picture projects that you need to clean up and do. And then four is where you absolutely don't want to be unless you're truly like doing that just to hang out and chill out. But that's the not urgent, not important, where it's just sort of like you maybe you feel like you're doing something, you're just so tired and so exhausted, that you're just, it's more of like a filler of time, and you want to avoid. When I was talking to one of my staff members about on November 6th, and she was like, well, Ruby, we've been getting prepared. We've been preparing for this. And I was like, yeah, you're right. We have been preparing for this. We did a lot of motions to reopen. We closed a lot of cases. We moved our case management software. We've been cleaning up. We've been preparing. And not necessarily that this was going to happen, but we knew this was a possibility. And because what I told the at the my speech on a couple of weeks ago in Boston was we all need to take our law practice management up a notch or two if we haven't already, to be able to just really hit the ground running with helping our clients under this administration. So we really need to lead into being strong leaders, not just for our clients or staff, the community, and we need also, we need to take care of ourselves, which I have a couple of slides about that. But um, we need to be able to get comfortable with the ambiguity and chaos that could happen, and we've done this before. I think there's one good positive quote by Peter Drucker, and he says that executives look at to change as an opportunity. And I'm paraphrasing it, but basically that's what he said. And I think if we look at it as change as an opportunity, play a little bit with our mind a little bit, because I know that's not the first thing we might be thinking, but and try to see what what come from that. And so I also love games. If my podcast, I always ask people, the guests, what their favorite game is. And I think about how when you play a game, you get to read the nice little set of rules, and then you learn it, or maybe you watch it on YouTube and then you figure it out, and then you start playing, and then after the first round or two becomes fun, because you it's sort of like on autopilot, the rules. But what we're going to be bracing ourselves is that we're going to be playing a game. Well, people's lives are at stake, unfortunately, and the rules are going to be changing constantly, with even while we're mid game, and without very little warning. And so, if we know this, then we will be prepared mentally. And we can also go about telling our clients and our staff that this is the way it's going to be, especially those who hadn't worked under the Trump administration, or who probably weren't used to that. But these are some of the things that I think we need to be prepping ourselves for, because remember, it would always be like a Friday night. We'd get some memo or some news blast about some major change, and those are the things that we need to prepare for ourselves. And then I wanted to lean into this idea too, that we want to avoid the fear, confusion, hesitation, and surprise. And these are survival instructors use this acronym: stop, observe, think, plan, and act. So right now we're stopping. and we're observing. We're thinking it through. Um, it's only been a week and a half. I mean, there was a lot of nonprofits, organizations, firms that already had a contingency plan. Maybe you already had one. Maybe you were in denial about having to use this plan, but I know I was. But these are some of the things we need to do, because that's why I showed that image at the top, that we need to be thinking at a high level, not in a reactionary. That's why I want us to go to quadrant 2, about how we can be doing important, not urgent things, and how we can think about it, give ourselves pause, to plan and act, and not let fear, confusion, hesitation, and surprise, which it's just like, we know that in governments or in leaders who are trying to persuade people that they can use fear and confusion to control masses. And we also know that if we think long, think wrong, if we wait too long to make a decision, that by not making a decision, we made a decision that we can delay, and cause more issues and problems. And so these are just other best practices to think about. And as we're also going through this, you've probably seen this before. What I think we should all do a SWOT analysis of our firms. What are our strengths? Um, we're well known in the community. We know our immigration. We know our case type of our area of law. We have good systems in place, whatever it may be. So, feel free to put it in the chat. What are some of the strengths that you have for your firm? One strength you want to share. And then weaknesses, maybe you don't want to share that, but think about what's a weakness that your firm has. Maybe you don't have that case management fully onboarded yet, or maybe you're not fully staffed at the moment. You're down 1 or 2 key people. Whatever that may be, but having it in writing, knowing what it is, not being in denial about it, that's going to help you, because then you're going to work on putting your energy towards fixing it. What are your opportunities? I think there's a lot of great opportunities for helping the latent market, those who are not being served. There's a lot of opportunity with using AI and technology. Maybe there's a client vertical or business opportunity, or service that you can add. And then threats. Well, here's one big one, but for the most part, what are those, like, big changes in regulation or law and policy? What consumer change towards, how they want to be served, and that you need to change you overhaul your procedures. But this is a healthy exercise for us to do on a regular basis, to see where we need to focus our energy. And so this is another one of those things I think we should all do very soon, so that we can figure out where we need to put our time in improving. So this is another question to ask. And feel free to put in the chat, what's a project that you're personally most proud of accomplishing, and what are your firm's top 5 accomplishments? I think this is a good homework assignment for us all, to reflect on what did we do in 2024. I mean, it's not over yet, but so personally, it could be getting healthier, finishing a book, starting a podcast, I don't know, doing some trips with your family, not working after a certain hour, whatever it may be. What was, we don't want to just have those, what are those called? Those New Year's resolutions, and then by January 15th or 20th, we forget about it, right? We want, what did you take all the way? Because honestly, by writing those down and reflecting on it, it is also going to help you build that confidence of what you can accomplish in 2025. What did your firm accomplish? I'll say for us, we moved over to a new case management software after like 15 years. That was a lot of work. That was just one thing, but that was one thing. And then what next question is, what are you what would you like to personally level up and improve personally? And then what do you think your firm needs to do to level up and improve? Um, for us, we're working on finalizing some online scheduling. I really wish it had been done a week and a half ago and everything got a little crazy, but we're almost there. That's just one of my projects. But does anybody want to add or share or orally or in a chat something that you're proud of that you accomplished this year? All right. Marcelo went fully paperless. Woohoo! This is a good time for that. That's great. whoa, Tina, 12 weeks of travel. Now you really need to be telling us about that. I think that's a whole nother webinar on how you pull that off. Yes, love for that. Anyone else want to share? Oh, good job, Sherry. First court appearance. That's awesome. We need more people who know how to do immigration court removal defense. That's awesome. Anyone else want to personal, professional?
I give myself to have a personal life.
Yay! Who was that just said that? Good job.
Sorry, it's Almina.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we're gonna keep moving, but I wanted we need to celebrate the wins, right? And if I forget to tell this later, I'm gonna say it now. Find your people, find some small group of people or your community that can help inspire you and support you, because we're gonna need this even more than ever. And just like the positive vibes we're getting right now from sharing these wins, we need to keep doing that. We need to find our people and find that community that can help inspire us and keep us going on those tough days. Adam, great. One federal court ruling for client after in-person argument. Woohoo. Nina, working on yourself. All right, using resources for my bar for mental health. Awesome. We're going to need a lot of that. Mental health, wellness, self-care. We're going to need to all lean into that. I sort of forgot how happy I've become the last 4 years until I realized things are going to change. So I'm going to have to lean in on the good stuff. Thank you, Sheila. Yeah. Yeah, going back to the basics. I mean, and that's the thing. I'm not telling you some of these things are not things you never heard of before. It's really just sort of refresher in this time, in this space, in this moment to help us think about best practices in one time, in one place. And I'd ask us all to go off and do some homework, block off some time to work on our business so that we can best improve and be ready for our staff and our community. Okay, so one thing that I think we all need to do is do an audit of our firm. We need to go through these different areas. Like there's this concept in the book Traction about issues. And he talks about issues are like problems, but it sounds better to call them issues than problems. And if you do an audit of your firm, then you can start thinking, what are all the issues that you have? And then what you ultimately do is you prioritize them after you sort of have your whole laundry list of them. Hopefully there's not that many, but if there is, it's fine. And then you figure out what do I need to put my energy towards? So systems is sort of like the standard operating procedures, to do sort of the flow from like the call to closing the case and everything in the middle. Are there some bottlenecks? Are there some things that you don't have enough staff or training, or there's some glitch with your technology? So when was the last time you did an audit of your systems, and do you know what you can improve? And feel free to chime in, anybody who wants to talk or say anything, or go ahead. Technology, this is pretty much thinking about your tech stack. When was the last time you really wrote out your entire tech stack? I'll tell you, full disclosure, I mean, I feel like sometimes I don't know what I'm paying for until I go look at the credit card, and then somehow he's like a creep. It's like a credit card creep where like we pay for something to try it out and then we forget to unsubscribe to it. So take a look at that, because the other thing is programs that, let's call them vendors or whatever companies, they're adding new features, and sometimes what's happening is that you don't need this one little program over here that only did one thing, because one of the other programs you have can do that thing now. And so you could be paying for a very robust, unnecessary tech stack. So that's why I would say, if ideally have someone in charge of your firm that's reviewing this on a regular basis, but making sure things are integrated, and try to focus on getting something from the initial call or contact going all the way to the contacts, to the consults, to the contracts, to the case being opened, all the way to the forms and to the end. That's an ideal situation. Auditing your staff and labor. Are you overstaffed? Are you understaffed? I like to look at it like, who are my next few hires if I needed them? Would it be a manager? Would it be somebody experienced in what area of within law? Is everyone in the right seats? Are they doing what they need to do? Is there someone that is not doing what they need to do? Those are, if a lot of times we get into trouble when we keep the wrong people in the seat, and we should be putting in motion a change. So client satisfaction, I added this because this wasn't really on my list before. Like, what's the client experience? Are they happy? Um, Getting reviews and getting referrals are some of the indications that they're happy with the process. How easy is it to be a client in your firm? Are there, are there a lot of hiccups? Those are some things to consider, because if they're happy with you, then they're more likely to refer, and then it gets easier on the marketing and promotion. And then moving over to marketing, are you paying for things you don't know if it's working or not? I know I was earlier this year. I've been doing a deeper dive as to the return on investment. Do review your budget, see what benefits of all the work that your things you're doing, the meetings, the webinars, the videos, the speeches. Is that really paying off? Is that the best use of time? Whether it's Google Ads, SEO, pay per click, those are things to consider. And then financials, looking at your P&L, balance sheet, year to date, look month to month, look at compare it to prior years as well to consider. So here's a little bit more in detail on evaluating and auditing, but some things, uh, these are sort of more in detail, but in terms of auditing all the spaces, just make sure that you're evaluating all the major functions in your firm. So total revenue, cash flow, accounts receivable. Are people being more difficult in paying and paying on time? Do you need a change? Does that necessitate changing a payment plan or how you take payments, or your procedures? So bottom line, you don't necessarily have to make a decision yet. I think the point of the audit and the point of gathering this data is to get the data so that you can then sit down in a quiet time, maybe with another team member and or consultant, evaluate whether or not what trends you're seeing and what you need to do differently. So okay, client metrics, client retention, satisfaction, completion rates. Do you have a good way to figure this out from reports from your case management software? A lot of this data is available, but it might not be easily available. Like, you might have it somewhere in your case management, your CRM, somewhere, but maybe you don't have it readily as a report. I would say another thing is to focus on trying to have these numbers readily available, so that you, just like I joke, I'm like captain of a ship, that I have my dashboard to be able to guide my team through difficult waters. There could be mines, and there could be icebergs, and there could be whatever, but I need the dashboard to be able to see, so that I can make those best decisions. Also evaluating employee productivity. I've seen a lot of times where people say they're busy, but they're not being efficient. So being able to check don't go on feelings, but go on actual numbers. How long does it take to get certain cases done? how long does it take to file? How many hours are they spending on things? Staff turnover and new hires. If you have a lot of turnover and churn, there's something to consider, like doing a deep dive as to why that's happening. Because honestly, we're not going to have a lot of time to be dealing with that type of stuff. We're going to need to have good systems, good team going forward so that we can. I mean, we're going to have to be working on that always, but I'm saying like we don't want to have to be worried about like having to hire and train if we can stop the turnover if possible, right? And a lot of times there's a lot of great best practices to stop that turnover. And then thinking about the operation efficiency and bottlenecks, like if you write out the flow of your processes, you can see um, where there might be a bottleneck, or you're depending too much on one person for everything to go through, and if that person might be slowing everything down. Marketing return on investment, lead conversion rates, where are people coming from? Are you checking that out on your intakes? Are you finding that out? Do you know what percentage come from referrals, come from pay-per-click, come from whatever media marketing you're doing? And then making sure that you're converting the social media leads as well. And then going back and reviewing your goals, doing risk assessment, which we talked a little bit about with the SWOT analysis, and looking at year over year. If you have enough years worth of data, being able to analyze how are things going. And when I do look at the data, I also try to give it context, like, oh, well, that's when the courts were down, or oh, that's when the pandemic was, or that's when I don't know, the economy wasn't so strong, or that's when this program came out. And I put in those notes so that way I can um, remember in context, because I don't know about you, but like even I was starting to forget some of the parts of what it was like to be under a Trump administration, because I think sometimes it's just easy to forget things. So let's see, my screen is there we go. It was acting up. Any thoughts or comments? Feel free to chime in. I am perfectly okay having someone say something. So, all right, so we're moving over to the next, adapt and thrive amid change, and some practical tips. If there wasn't an administration change that was going to be so drastic to our profession, I think the biggest topic these days is AI and technology, which even that shouldn't be disappeared from the conversation. In fact, that's still at the forefront. So I personally have gone to 4 legal tech conferences this year: ABA Tech Show, Lex with Filevine, CleoCon, and the ALA Tech Summit that I was the chair of. And I'm constantly learning, evaluating, exploring how best to leverage AI and for technology and automation in my practice. Remote work and having virtual or hybrid firm, I think after the pandemic, that's still here to stay. And I don't think it's really getting, we're able to get, I think that's still going to be here for the foreseeable future. And then I think we're also seeing a lot of change in client expectation. Let's see. Okay. So when I say about changing client expectations, what I'm talking about is they're seeing what they're seeing in other areas in terms of how quickly their services are provided. A lot of them think that we're like Amazon, that they can just click a couple buttons and that they can get what they want as quickly as possible. They don't, it's sort of the professional service industry is not the same thing as a widget. But they do have these higher expectations, and their clients are a lot more savvy than ever before. So these are some big trends I think that we're going to keep seeing and are here. Let me see if I can do the polls while I'm talking. Let's see. Okay. You launch all of them, or you just launch one at a time? Okay. Well, I've got several poll questions. I think I should have done it one at a time, but whatever. If you see that, you feel free to answer. Leveraging technology. How many of you feel like you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're awesome and one being like you have a lot of work to do, where do you think your firm is on leveraging technology? 10 being amazing. Feel free to put it in the chat. And so honestly, there's so much out there. It's a bit overwhelming. I think at the beginning we were all like, oh, we don't want to be those people who get in trouble for, using AI and not checking the sources. But that's okay. That's old news. Let's move on. There's so many different ways that we can be using it to be more efficient and ultimately help our clients by passing on savings and efficiency. So those are the things that I think we all need to be figuring out. And okay, so Sherry's a 6.5, Tina 4. Um, and let's see, I have lately, but I've become frustrated. All right. Well, yeah, feel free to go ahead and put any more your chat 1 to 10, 10 being amazing at technology. So there's lots of really cool tools. Like even a call I was on earlier today was talking about how they're using, oh, I forgot what it's called, it's a recording dictaphone type of add-on in Google Chrome that he connects to the chat GPT to be able to just talk to it and then sort of tell it what it wants, and then it can be drafting, or to be able to record your notes afterwards, that can be easily put in so that your client, your staff can know what, I mean, maybe you're already doing stuff like that, but like the thing is the tools are there. It's just sort of a matter of having the tools readily available and vetted for security purposes, and then integrated with what we're already doing. So like for me, I've noticed I've been going back to back on consults. I just need to start like probably, having a dictation so that those notes can get there. And I know some other team friends are recording, with permission, and they're creating the summary and the action items. So that there are also ways to draft documents, and to at least be editing instead of creating from scratch, right? So there's so many different tools out there, that make sure that you're looking into that and what you're doing. I'll just do a subtle plug for ABA Tech Show, April 2nd to 5th. In Chicago, a lot of vendors there, a lot of great content. I'm on ABA, the board. But finding ways that you can automate. Like if your team is doing something as a repetitive task and you haven't tried to find a way of automating it, you need to be doing that, because maybe you're amazing at technology, but you haven't like gone and do a deep dive on your rest of your team to see what they're doing. One of the things we do on a practical sense is every week when we have our office meeting, we do like a tech a minute or AI minute or something, and we talk about best practices or tricks or tips we've learned and try to share that with each other. So this is um, yeah. And I see there's lots of different great content in here. Thank you. Um, Rebecca's struggling with I think you mean the of technology and finding and the case management. And then Andrew, you were talking about the remote hybrid, improve staff satisfaction. Yeah. There's a lot of staff burnout, and so we need to balance what we're finding ways that staff want to stick around. Yeah, basically after we gave the hybrid, we really couldn't not give it. It was a way we could keep people, and I'm fine to offer it. The work gets done. I'm fine with it. Um, so anyway, finding ways to automate, because if you think about how much time people spend doing things, like if you know what you always, it's a questionnaire, filling out the forms, going back and forth. If there's ways to drafting documents, whatever those time consuming, repetitive type of things are, you want to find ways to speed that up. Um, we've been leveraging virtual assistants for about 3-ish years now, I think. Um, I was experimenting with different options even before that, but honestly, I don't think I can go back now afterwards, just because it seems to be the best way for me to find staff, and also in the hybrid space of finding people who can do the work anywhere and can accomplish our goals. I think we also, of course, this isn't a CLE, but there's not a lot of ethics out there about the AI, but I think for the most part, just being aware of the security and data privacy. And I think they're still trying to figure out whether we need to tell the clients or not, depending on the jurisdiction. The way I look at it, it's almost like using the internet, or I think back in maybe the 90s, like there was this whole hubbub, like, what do we do? Are we not gonna are we gonna tell the clients, or it's dangerous? I don't know, internet. But like now AI is incorporated into so much now, it's almost like hard to say. It's like yesterday's AI is like today's software. So I think you could probably just put a line in some of your agreements and just say, we use AI and try to leverage technology, but use it to the best of our ability for data privacy, um, and um, and follow the ethics guidelines that we have. I think that you should be fine, but we're still waiting for a little bit more guidance in the future. But I think our duty to be able to know this information and stay on top is really important. And then just one other curveball to keep an eye out for is the evolving regulations, everything from non-lawyer ownership, to sharing of fees with non-lawyers, those types of things. Recently, Utah said they won't take any more applicants from the sandbox, from immigration practices. They're focusing more on helping the Utah citizens for that latent market for access to justice. But it is something to keep an eye out for. There's a lot of change about, and that's also another disruptor that is out there. um, I think it's important for us to keep a flexible mindset. So that includes continuously learning, experimenting to see what could work. I mean, a lot of us on here are entrepreneurs, and so I think by inherently willing to experiment. Maybe this is a good way to charge, or this is a good way to provide this service, or this is a good technology, and also wanting to encourage that amongst your staff as well. This is a time that we're going to need to focus on cross training. I think there should be multiple people in your firm who know how to do the multiple things, not just from administrative tasks, but also from the case types that you have. It could be a moment's notice that we say this program doesn't exist anymore. Everyone, if you we need people to move over to this department. Those are the things that you need to be thinking about. One thing we do practically is on our legal team meetings, we share what we learn from CLEs, so that everyone gets cross-trained. And we also have what we call like champions of different topics, so that people are keeping an eye out. So it's like maybe of DACA or of mandamus or something. And then if there's anything big that happens in the news, or that they're supposed to report back and tell the rest of us. That way we have mini expert, MINI and MANY experts, so that way we can stay on top of everything. And we're going to need it, because it's going to be like playing whack-a-mole with all the different changes that are going to be coming. So this is sort of a little overview between having that flexible staffing. I think if you can't find someone to be a full-time employee for something, then you're going to have to build your team of contractors and have them available. And that happened to me when I couldn't find certain associates. I had a team of contractors I had pre-vetted and had agreements with, and I'm using them as I need for like hearings or interviews and things like that, or research and writing. Um, Project management tools are a good way to avoid. We learned a lot, how to talk asynchronistically. If we need to not have, you want to avoid meetings. Those are things to consider on leveraging, so that you can communicate. And maybe it's with your case management software or some other tool. And then trying to make sure that technology is integrated everywhere you possibly can. And this is also just another best practice of building those transferable skills from like client, working with clients, that empathy, but also cross training for different case types. And like, don't have just one person who can write in the firm, because that you might need to start having more writing intensive thing, or have a couple people who can do research, or the more that you can have that expertise available. But it's hard when you have a truly a solo or small firm. But so then that would be, I think, teaming up with a couple of other attorneys, or staying involved in, there's lots of different Facebook groups and listservs, of having like your people that you can rely on to be your support network. Um, I think what we're also going to see is how, and this is, reminds me a lot during the pandemic of like, how can we be a resource for our clients from and up our client focused representation. A combination of what do you guys does anybody do you guys have newsletters? Do you send out information regularly? Do you have webinars? How, where, what languages, what frequency, what topics? Do you do case manage? Do you do social media accounts? Like how are you going to get information out? Like if they were to try to get rid of DACA tomorrow, whatever, what how would you tell people? Would you be able to run a list of the people who have it on your case, your clients? Would you just put on your newsletter, your website, your social media? How long would it take you to do that? Though that's sort of what we need to do, is like a stress test of like how hard would it be to get information out we need to. And also just constantly thinking about how you can streamline your case management and communication. There's some programs out there like there's one called HONA, HONA, that has I think case status is another one as well, where they're trying to be a way to maximize the communication from even from opening the case or from submitting the case and the monitoring, that you can communicate with them with videos and texts and emails and things like that, especially when there's like a no status type of a chat of some sort where clients just, what's going on with my case? And a lot of times we spend a lot of time just saying nothing's going on with your case, but just that peace of mind. So like make sure to be thinking about it from the client's perspective, and how you're going to reach them and how you can increase that communication. So okay. Oh good, so Nina, you do a monthly newsletter to clients. um, Agnolia says, how do we automate those repetitive tasks? Is it only through case management? No, you can do it through lots of different ways. I mean, there could be a program, like first of all, you could use a Zapier. You could use a case management software, a CRM. I think the question is, what is those automated tasks? Like, for example, we're using Lawmatics for our CRM, and that helps us write our contracts. And we're able to take the information from an intake to draft a contract really quickly. So I think it depends on what you're talking about. So we're building resilient teams. Make sure you have transparent communication, clear expectations, check-ins. Basically, just have to be a good in HR and leadership and management like you normally would have to, but you might have to take it up a notch or two, because it's going to be sometimes it's going to be a little bit more intense than before, and we need to keep an eye on our staff and making sure that they're not going to get burnt out. So it's important to celebrate those milestones and successes, and realize that, you know, and reward the team members and the team, and create that culture of, you know, you're of going that extra mile. And sometimes when you're the boss and you're a little far removed from in the hierarchy, you might not realize what people are doing to do such a good job, but and making sure that that little chat or a little email or that little acknowledgement in front of everyone else can mean a lot, or a handwritten note. So make sure you're watching your culture and supportive network, because especially helping during these times that's going to get really trying. Make sure you're emphasizing work-life balance. That's generally should be coming from the top as a good uh, from a good role model leader. But I think sometimes it can be hard when you feel like you have a lot of pressure being at the top. But be aware that people are watching. You know, do you work after hours? Do you work on the weekends? Are you having balance? And you want to be able to have flexibility to retain a strong team. Like maybe someone needs to reduce their hours, but they still want to work with you, but they finding a way to make that work, or they need to relocate, but you can still make it work because it can be done remotely. So getting that feedback from your team that you normally would, but just make sure we're doing it, because what's going to happen is we're going to get busy and we're going to say, oh, I don't have time for that. But this is quadrant 2 again. This is that important, not urgent space. I'm building up and supporting our team. Make sure that you're looking for people who are adaptable. I think tech proficiency is really important, especially as we use more AI. Client focused communication, problem solving, you don't want a whole bunch of people you have to tell them what to do, right? You would like some people who can do some independent thinking and work on their own. And I think the commitment to learning, these are some really important things that they don't think that they know everything, and that they don't need, the knowns and unknowns, like that they don't think that, oh, I'm an attorney now, I know everything. No, that's a bit dangerous. So we're constantly learning, and make sure that you have a way to keep people feel engaged, and the onboarding and skill development, which we talked about, the cross training. Okay, so we're running close to the end of the time, but what I would say is that we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves, get the sleep, take care, eat properly, take a lunch, try to not work after hours, take those weekends to just be present. As much as it's hard, even for me to take this advice, I think it helps me work better during the week, and I know that, and we're gonna get burnt out if we don't do that. Um, I Let's move on to one other thing I think we need to do is be thinking about a practice of gratitude. I wrote about it in my book, in like the self-care chapter, about like journaling and how important that is. We are basically people's therapists. They tell us a whole bunch of things. On Saturday, I had a whole bunch of consults. It was almost all asylum. I have a whole bunch of like movies running through my head and a whole bunch of crazy scenes. Like, we need a journal so we can get things out, and we can also see connections and make good decisions. If we don't, we're never going to remember some of these key points. But it also goes well that there's a lot of success amongst journaling of gratitude, of like, what are you happy about? What do you appreciate? Statistically, the more you do that type of thing, the better off you're going to be. And I think it might be good to have a little journal somewhere. You're like, what I'm happy for today, or three things, I don't know. And maybe you make it a part of the culture with the firm. And then that can be a way to keep people going and see the positive. Um, I also suggest we need to have building a community, not just for like support of during trying times, but also for referrals, for information. And like, for example, I work with like Mexican consulate or some nonprofits, and that ability gives me a lot of intel, but it also, I give back to them as well. So it's like a really great environment. Um, and then let's moving quick to how to prepare even more. You can go back to your SMART goals, and your mission and vision for your firm. Who are you trying to help? What are your goals? I think one thing we need to think about is we're not going to be able to help all people, and we're going to get a little overwhelmed with a lot of the changes. So we need to divide and conquer and figure out who can we help. We might have to scale down the scope of what we normally do in our practice. We might have to say we're not going to take these types of cases, and we're only going to do these types of cases, and whatever it may be. Or maybe we can't take anything rush, or maybe anything detained. So I think it's okay. And if we all sort of divide and conquer, as a collective, it will be better at what we can focus and do well at. So SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Go back and remember what your review your goals for your firm. And back to what I was mentioning, the issue list. After you've done your audit and you've reflected, find out what you think your priorities are. Is it, I need to change my case management software, or I need to improve the call to consult flow, or I need to make sure my entire team has everything written down, all of the standard operating procedures, whatever it may be. Once you've made your list of problems or issues, we'll call them issues, then you can prioritize, and you can try to assign to people in your firm to help you put some deadlines and start attacking and moving forward. But you can only do a few at a time well, and you might have to give yourself a whole like quarter or two for that project, depending on how big that project is. So making sure your goals align with your core mission. Is it a SMART goal? Prioritizing and assigning, and then like that quote at the very beginning about breaking it down into smaller steps. So as this too shall pass, 4 years. of some tough times in in immigration and potentially other areas of practice, depending on what changes may come. But really, we just need to take it one step at a time. And just like best practices of making short-term and long-term goals, and having those strategic plans is what we need to do. Whether we need to have accountability partners and or a coach, consultant, making sure you're creating and locating, curating, and building a community that can support you. Like I have a small business women business owner group I work with. I have a little mastermind here and there. We have all these different groups. We have the Power Up Your Practice Facebook group. There's a lot of different places that we can pull from and guidance. And then making sure you're leveraging your team and you're not thinking that you have to do everything yourself. That you're truly delegating and you're leaning into that support, because if you try to do everything, you're going to burn out and nothing's going to happen. So we covered a lot really quickly, and I'll send out some information for another webinar. We can do more of a deep dive on one of these topics that could be of interest to you. But I think you should go do your homework, reviewing 2024 numbers, auditing your firm, and keeping in mind all those best practices about what you can control and what you can't control, and where you want to put your energy. Then best practices from leveraging technology, potentially hybrid virtual assistants, to cross training, and then building that resilient culture, focusing on self-care, and then also reviewing your goals and making plans and thinking through different contingencies of what could happen and what you're going to do about that. So if anyone has any questions, I can't believe it went by that quickly, but hopefully this was a value for you all. You can find out more about the Power Up Your Practice podcast. I put a lot of content, we've had 40 episodes right now, and it's completely free wherever you can find podcasts. We have Power Up Your Practice, and then the book with Amazon is available. I'll put that in the chat as well, but it's you can Amazon Prime, you can get it in a day or two. A lot of great 25 chapters, a lot of great content from everything from operations, self-care, succession planning, marketing, and even digital marketing. I have 2 chapters on marketing. And I'll go ahead and stop there. But any questions, thoughts? Oh, someone said the 5-minute journal. Oh, that's nice. Good gift for the employees. That's awesome. Any thoughts, questions, reflections, best practices before we have to hop off? And I'll go ahead and put my email in and the link to the book and the podcast as well, in case you want to reach out. Love to stay in touch. Any questions, thoughts?
I have a bit of a controversial comment that I'm gonna make. Well, maybe it's controversial, maybe it's not.
Okay.
So I guess as a Muslim attorney, we kind of a lot of us were dealing with the whole issue with Palestine, and a lot of people were getting exed and stuff like that. So I think one thing we learned from that experience is, forming little groups, kind of to like more like think tanks. And I just feel like maybe with the new administration, it would be nice to kind of have or create that kind of environment for a lot of us attorneys, because some of us are solos like myself. I'm completely solo. It would just be kind of nice to, like, bounce ideas off, and that way, all that stuff is, I guess, kind of put in place before 2025. That way we're not like freaking out.
Well, I think it's good to have your small groups that you can really be honest with and people you can rely on. And then you can have your bigger groups as well to like outsource a lot more information. But honestly, I'm getting major like beginning of pandemic vibes right now. Just like the whole being able to rely on, like my small business women owner group is the ones that helped me get the PPP loan because they had contacts with the bankers. and I was able to get like when I need as quickly as I possibly could. So I think that's just an example about how I think it's really valuable. You got your support network, you've got your people who know the different case types, um, people who you might, a little bit of think like you sometimes, and a little, make you think about something that you from a different perspective as well. So I I think building those networks are really important right now. If you haven't already found those groups. Um, well, I don't know if that helped answer a question. Anybody else have a question? I was about safety in the office. Okay. Well, I know people need to hop off. We'll stop the recording, but if anyone has any questions, I can stay on for a little bit longer, and just feel free to subscribe to the podcast and newsletter, and feel free to take a look at the book if you're interested. But we'll do some more webinars in the future, and sort of do a deeper dive on some of these topics. But thanks so much for watching, and it's good to see you.